Hello everyone, this is Tom Fox and welcome to a special 5-part series on popcorn and compliance. The podcast series where I look at compliance through the lens of Hollywood movies. This month I start a special 5-part series on the classic Universal movie monsters from the 30s and 40s. I mine 5 of them for compliance lessons learned. We include Frankenstein, Dracula, the Wolfman, the Mummy, and we conclude with the Invisible Man. As befitting his role in Universal Classic Monsters, we're going to start with Boris Karloff and his portrayal of Frankenstein's monster. We're also going to look at Bela Lugosi as Count Dracula. We will look at Lon Chaney Jr. and perhaps the most psychological of the classic Universal movie monsters, the Wolfman. We'll look at the Mummy, and we'll conclude our series with Claude Rains as the Invisible Man. So sit back, get a big old bag of popcorn, and get ready to enjoy Timothy and Fiona talking to us and taking a deep dive into the classic Universal movie monsters. As promised, our first episode is Boris Karloff as Frankenstein's monster.
Today we're embarking on a journey I found genuinely surprising, connecting the timeless terror of a classic horror film to the very real high-stakes world of modern corporate compliance. We're talking about James Whale's iconic 1931 adaptation of Frankenstein, starring the legendary Boris Karloff as the monster. Honestly, for many of us, Karloff's haunting, lumbering portrayal is the enduring image of that tragic creature. It's a performance that truly sticks with you.
It absolutely does, and what's particularly striking is how relevant that nearly century-old film remains. At its very core, Frankenstein is a profound, almost chilling story about risk, about responsibility, and about the devastating consequences when governance utterly fails. Henry Frankenstein's unchecked ambition, his profound lack of oversight, and his, blatant disregard for ethical guardrails offer surprisingly direct and potent lessons for today's professionals. Our mission today is really to cut through the noise and give you a shortcut to understanding how to navigate innovation responsibly by unpacking 5 core compliance lessons drawn directly from that unforgettable cinematic masterpiece. Think of it as a kind of masterclass in preventing your own organizational monsters from ever taking shape.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Our first big lesson. The stark truth that ambition without boundaries leads to disaster. Cast your mind back to Henry Frankenstein. His ambition was absolutely monumental, wasn't it? Almost off the charts. He had this singular, almost divine vision of creating man in his own image. That driving force pushed him far, far outside accepted ethical and scientific norms. We see him actively isolating himself in his remote laboratory.
Right, ignoring established rules, shunning the wisdom of his peers.
Exactly, and even struggling to find support. He ultimately only convinces a single, rather simple-minded assistant, Fritz, to go along with his incredibly reckless project. It was a vision divorced from any kind of accountability from the very beginning, really.
Yeah.
A lone wolf charging headlong into the unknown.
Precisely. And in the corporate world, we see this brand of ambition manifest in, countless ways. It could be aggressive growth targets that push ethical boundaries, maybe rapid market entry deadlines that bypass due diligence, or the urgent, uncritical push for technological breakthroughs like, in the AI space today.
Sure, that's very current.
Ambition itself isn't inherently wrong. In fact, it's often the very engine of progress and innovation. Absolutely vital. But what Frankenstein shows us is that when that ambition operates without boundaries, without those crucial guardrails, the risks don't just multiply. They become catastrophic, often with unforeseen ripple effects.
So the compliance angle here is?
The key compliance takeaway here is that our role as professionals isn't to kill ambition, but to ensure it's channeled responsibly. That means proactively building a robust compliance framework, not just a list of rules, mind you, but crafting the very architecture of ambition. We must design containment fields for innovation before the lightning strikes, embedding ethical considerations directly into business decisions from the outset. and ensuring leadership understands fundamentally that true sustainable success cannot and must not come at the cost of compliance. It's about building a laboratory where breakthroughs happen safely, not recklessly.
That makes perfect sense. Building the lab, not just unleashing the experiment. But it's easy to talk about boundaries before things get going. What happens when ambition runs wild and the inevitable question arises? Who truly takes responsibility when things unravel? This leads us directly to our second powerful lesson from Frankenstein. Oversight and accountability cannot be delegated away. And here's where it gets really interesting. Remember Henry Frankenstein's behavior. He assumes total authority over his creation, reveling in his success. Yet the moment things start to spiral, the moment the monster causes harm, he completely shirks responsibility.
Yes, completely.
His assistant, Fritz, mistreats the monster, provoking its initial violence, an act Henry seemingly allows, or at least turns a blind eye to.
He enables it.
And when the creature escapes and tragedies mount, Henry descends into this deep denial, actually claiming he never intended any harm, as if his hands were clean. It's almost laughable in its absurdity, except it's so tragic for everyone involved.
It's a classic pattern, isn't it? Regulators see this exact scenario play out constantly in enforcement actions. You have executives authorizing high-risk ventures, launching ambitious projects, but then when misconduct occurs, they suddenly argue they were unaware of the details.
Right, or that wasn't my department.
Exactly. Or that responsibility lay elsewhere, often with a subordinate, a third-party vendor, maybe a contractor. The DOJ's evaluation of corporate compliance programs, the ECCP, which is essentially the government's comprehensive guide for what robust compliance looks like in practice, is crystal clear on this, especially in its 2024 revisions.
What does it say?
Leadership must own risk. Responsibility cannot be delegated away, full stop. Compliance leaders must establish clear lines of accountability, ensuring that decision makers can't hide behind subordinates or, contractual fine print. A truly robust compliance program demands strong, visible oversight mechanisms, not just paper pushing, but active engagement, regular and transparent reporting up to the highest levels.
Including the board.
Absolutely. Direct board engagement on risk and clear escalation procedures that prevent responsibility from ever being ignored or passed off. If Henry Frankenstein had faced genuine oversight, the outcome might have been very, very different.
So it's not enough for leaders to just sign off. They have to actually own the process and the outcomes. That makes perfect sense on paper, but thinking practically, in the trenches of a fast-moving organization, what are the roadblocks you often see? What allows responsibility to be delegated away, even when intentions might initially be good? Is it just willful ignorance, or maybe something more subtle?
That's an excellent question, because it's rarely as simple as malice. Often it's the sheer speed of business, the pressure to hit targets.
That's a quarter of numbers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or even a lack of clear understanding of what responsibility truly entails in practice. Sometimes leaders genuinely believe they've delegated an issue effectively because they've assigned it to someone else.
Tick the box.
Right. But they haven't put in place the mechanisms to monitor or understand the progress or even how that person is executing the task. We also see what I call optimism bias, a belief that it won't happen to us, leading to a less rigorous approach to oversight. Compliance has to actively push against these natural human and organizational tendencies by making accountability not just a policy, but an ingrained practice through continuous training, clear metrics, and consistent reinforcement from the top.
That deepens the understanding considerably. Okay, moving to our third point, and it's a profoundly crucial one that resonates deeply with Frankenstein. Culture determines outcomes. Perhaps the most tragic part of Karloff's monster is that he wasn't inherently evil. Not at all. He actually demonstrates moments of pure innocence and curiosity, most famously in that heartbreaking scene with the little girl by the lake, where he just wants to play and share flowers.
Such a powerful scene.
Yet, because of the environment he's thrust into, he's relentlessly rejected, mistreated, and feared. The surrounding suspicion, hostility, secrecy of the villagers, and even the initial terror of his creator drives him to violence. He becomes what he's treated as.
Exactly.
A terrifying product of his environment, despite his initial, almost childlike, benign intent.
What's truly fascinating here is how that starkly reminds us that corporate culture determines how people behave. Employees aren't born unethical or malicious. Just like Karloff's monster, their conduct is profoundly shaped by the culture around them.
So the environment dictates.
Precisely. If an organization fosters openness, psychological safety, respect, and ethical decision-making, employees are far more likely to do the right thing, to speak up when something is wrong, and to collaborate ethically. Conversely, if fear, retaliation, or secrecy dominate the workplace, even well-intentioned people can go astray, lash out, cover up missteps, or simply look the other way out of self-preservation. It's that initial, almost benign intent of the employee that can be utterly perverted by a toxic, fear-driven environment.
That's a powerful idea.
Compliance professionals must continuously monitor, measure, and nurture that culture. It's not enough to simply write a code of conduct and call it a day, expecting it to be some kind of magical shield.
Right.
Leaders must visibly model ethical behavior. Middle management needs to consistently reinforce expectations through their actions, and, critically, employees must feel absolutely safe to raise concerns without fear of reprisal. Without the right culture, even the strongest controls will eventually fail because people will find ways around them if they feel they have to.
I'm genuinely struck by that point about initial benign intent being perverted. Beyond just surveys and hotlines, what's a concrete, perhaps surprising indicator that an organization's culture is truly unhealthy? Even if it has a great code of conduct on paper, what's a red flag that might not be immediately obvious?
That's a great question, and it often comes down to informal communication. How do people really talk? One subtle but powerful red flag is when employees consistently bypass official channels to resolve issues.
Going around the system.
Exactly. They rely solely on informal networks or whisper campaigns to get things done, or even just to vent frustrations. If people don't trust the formal mechanisms, HR, compliance, management, to address concerns fairly and without retribution, they'll create their own, less transparent systems.
Interesting.
Another sign is a consistent lack of dissenting voices in meetings, especially among middle management. If everyone always agrees with the highest-ranking person, it's often not because they genuinely agree,
But because they're afraid to disagree.
Precisely. They fear speaking up. That signals a culture of fear, even if the written policies promote open dialogue.
Those are powerful, insightful indicators. Okay, let's shift gears a bit to our fourth lesson. Emerging risks require continuous reassessment. Henry Frankenstein truly believed he understood the risks of his creation. He had his plans, his calculations, his meticulous lab work, felt he had it all figured out.
He thought he did.
But once the monster actually came to life, new, unanticipated risks appeared that completely blindsided him. Its immense, uncontrolled strength.
It's unpredictability.
Its sheer unpredictability and the devastating impact of its isolation and rejection by humanity. His failure wasn't just in creating the monster in the first place.
No, not just that.
But in utterly failing to reassess and adapt once circumstances fundamentally changed and new, evolving threats materialized. His risk assessment was static while his creation was dynamic.
And this is exactly the type of oversight the DOJ, in its 2024 ECCP revisions, emphasizes so strongly. Risk is not static.
It changes.
It's a dynamic, ever-changing landscape, constantly evolving, new markets, new products, new technologies. Think about the rapid development of generative AI today.
A perfect example.
Or the complexities of global supply chain transparency, or the rapidly evolving landscape of ESG, environmental, social, and governance accountability. They all bring new and emerging risks that weren't even conceivable a few years ago.
Things move so fast now.
They do. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, a compliance program that doesn't evolve quickly becomes obsolete, just like Henry Frankenstein's understanding of his creation became obsolete. Programs must be dynamic, constantly conducting regular, thorough risk assessments, continuously updating training and monitoring tools to match new realities, and being ready to pivot rapidly as new risks appear on the horizon.
So static policies are dangerous.
Extremely. Static policies written 3 or 5 years ago based on an old risk profile simply won't protect a company from today's realities. Failing to reassess is, in essence, a recipe for organizational disaster, leaving you vulnerable to your own unforeseen monsters.
That's a stark warning. So beyond just an annual review, what are some practical, immediate mechanisms compliance teams can put in place to ensure this continuous reassessment, especially with fast-moving emerging risks like AI? How do you keep up?
Excellent question, because continuous means much more than just a yearly check-in. For fast-moving risks like AI, companies should establish dedicated horizon scanning teams or cross-functional working groups.
So, not just compliance.
Definitely not. These aren't just compliance people, but include legal, tech, product development, maybe even marketing. Their job is to actively track regulatory developments, industry best practices, and even public sentiment related to new technologies. Regular pulse check risk assessments, perhaps quarterly or even monthly for specific high-risk areas, should replace the traditional annual deep dive.
More frequent checks.
Yes. And crucially, they need to implement agile policy development. Policies shouldn't be set in stone, but designed to be reviewed and updated regularly. Think living documents rather than static rulebooks carved in granite. Finally, and this is key, feedback loops from incident reporting, internal audits, and even external intelligence must be integrated immediately into risk models, not just filed away for later.
That sounds like a truly proactive, iterative approach, rather than just waiting for something to break. So what does this all mean when, despite your best efforts perhaps, everything goes sideways? When the crisis hits? That brings us to our fifth and final lesson from Frankenstein. Crisis management requires preparation, not panic. Think about the absolute climax of the film. The pure chaos of those villagers, torches in hand, storming Frankenstein's castle.
An unforgettable image.
By that point, there's no plan, no strategy. Henry Frankenstein is completely reactive, not proactive, allowing panic to dictate every outcome.
Utterly overwhelmed.
It leads to the monster being hunted down, the laboratory being destroyed, and the entire community traumatized. It's a complete, utter breakdown of control.
It's a perfect parallel, really, to corporate compliance teams facing similar moments of crisis, whether it's an FCPA investigation into bribery,
A big one.
a massive data breach exposing customer information, or serious whistleblower allegations of misconduct. The critical difference between that kind of chaos and organizational resilience lies squarely in preparation. This raises an important question for you, the listener. Is your company actively practicing crisis management scenarios? Really pressure testing them?
Good question.
Are clear reporting lines established and understood not just on paper, but in practice, so everyone knows who to call and what to do when the pressure's on? And is the compliance function truly empowered to act decisively and be part of the core decision-making team during a crisis? Or are they brought in too late just to clean up?
Often an afterthought, maybe.
Sadly, sometimes yes. It's about building detailed playbooks before the crisis hits, testing those playbooks rigorously with tabletop exercises that simulate real-world pressures.
Like a fire drill for compliance.
Exactly like that. And ensuring compliance has a vital seat at the table in all crisis planning. Preparation prevents panic. It's that simple, that essential, and the key to navigating the storm without everything crumbling around you.
What an incredible journey through a classic film. The genius of Boris Karloff's monster is that he is both terrifying and, somehow, profoundly sympathetic.
He really is.
He truly embodies the unintended consequences of human ambition and the devastating failures of oversight, accountability, and culture that we've explored today. For compliance professionals, and really for any leader listening, Frankenstein is so much more than just a horror story. It's a profound, vivid, and surprisingly relevant case study in governance collapse.
Absolutely. The 5 lessons we've highlighted are as vivid and relevant today as they were when that film premiered nearly a century ago. Ambition needs clear boundaries to thrive responsibly. True accountability cannot be delegated away. Culture fundamentally drives conduct within an organization. Risks must be continuously reassessed as they evolve, and robust crisis planning is absolutely non-negotiable.
Those 5 points really crystallize it.
And when you look at contemporary compliance challenges like navigating the ethical dilemmas of AI governance, ensuring true transparency across complex supply chains, establishing meaningful ESG accountability metrics, or managing the vast array of third-party risks, they all share striking similarities with Henry Frankenstein's laboratory. They involve bold ambitions, innovative experiments, and incredibly high stakes. The critical question for every organization is whether compliance is in the room early enough.
At the start.
Yes, early enough to help set those guardrails, continuously monitor the risks, and ensure the organization doesn't inadvertently create its own monsters through neglect or oversight.
So as you go about your week, consider this provocative thought. Compliance's job isn't to kill ambition, but to shape it. It's about ensuring innovation thrives without unleashing unintended horrors. How do these vivid lessons from Frankenstein apply to your own professional landscape and your team or your organization? What steps can you take right now to ensure your organization doesn't inadvertently create its own monsters in the pursuit of progress? Something compelling to chew on. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.
This is Tom Fox again. Thank you so much for listening to this special edition of Popcorn and Compliance, where we looked at compliance lessons from Boris Karloff's Frankenstein. I hope you'll join us again next week on Friday, October 10th, where we look at compliance lessons from Bela Lugosi's Count Dracula. This special podcast series has been a production of the Compliance Podcast Network. As I mentioned at the start of this outro, Fiona and Timothy are the guest hosts, and they are AI creations. I'd love to know what you think of their commentary, so if you drop me a line or post something in the comments, I would greatly appreciate it. Thanks so much for listening. We look forward to visiting with you again. This series is a special production of the Compliance Podcast Network.